My name is Reg Windsor. I'm the Executive Director of ArtsNL, the Newfoundland Labrador Arts Council. We're the managing partner of the BMO Winterset Award. It's a partnership, of course, that exists between Richard Gwyn, the founder of the Winterset Award, and thanks, Richard, for involving us right from the get-go back 18 years ago. And a new partnership that was established, well, I won't say new, because it is 7 years old now, but fairly new. And that is the relationship that we have with the BMO Financial Group, who came on as a sponsor 7 years ago. I made a big difference, actually, in the prize awards that we're able to award each year. The winner receives $12,500. The two finalists receive $3,000 as well. So it's one of Atlantic Canada's richest literary prizes. So, please extend a big thank you to BMO and Richard for their involvement in this. Well, this year our jury was tasked with selecting 3 finalists from 31 submissions in all genres. And I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge those jury members. You'll actually see them in their program as well. You'll see all of the books up here on the screen as well. So the 3 jury members this year were Donna Morrissey, and I'm going to ask Donna to stand. Paul Rowe, here in the middle as well. And Chad Pilley, but for some reason I didn't see Chad come in, actually, so I got a funny feeling that he may not have made it. But Chad was our 3rd jury member this year. So a big round of applause for our 3 jury members who were tasked with this inevitable task this year and did a wonderful job. So our first speaker this evening is based in Conn River, on the Conn River Reserve, and has been active as a professional artist for over 30 years. His work is included in a number of public and private collections. He has exhibited artworks throughout North America and won awards for his unique bone and antler carvings. His dedication to the community is evident as he continues to serve as a member of several boards throughout Newfoundland and Labrador, and is regularly called upon by various organizations for his expertise and opinions. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the chair of ArtsNL, Mr. Stan Hill.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this, our now coming to annual presentation and reading, and you get together where you get to pick the minds a little bit of some of these artists here. It's something that I consider a rare occasion because we rarely open ourselves up to inquiry. But this evening, this is BMO Winterset Award is one of the largest literary prizes in Atlantic Canada, and it's highly regarded across Canada and beyond. Tomorrow, at the Government House, one of the 3 authors will be named as the winner. And we look forward to those that will be able to join us tomorrow. And we thank everyone for showing up tonight. It certainly is nice to have a full house here. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Representing the government of Newfoundland and Labrador this evening is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Service, Newfoundland and Labrador, and MHA for Virginia Walters, Pleasantville. Please welcome Mr. Bernard Davis.
Thank you very much, Reg. No one told me that it was supposed to be short, so I was quite happy that the chairs were comfortable for you guys. But wow, it's great to see extra seats having been brought in, and I feel bad that I stayed in the seat and I should have passed it over to the 2 people that were passed by here. Mr. Hill, Mr. Holloway, certainly a pleasure for me to be here tonight representing the government of Newfoundland and Labrador and Minister Mitchellmore, who couldn't be here tonight. And honouring the memory of a passionate promoter of Newfoundland and Labrador arts, Sandra Fraser Gwyn. The BMO Winterset Award celebrates excellence in Newfoundland and Labrador writing, and the nominees shortlisted for this year are no exception. I thank ArtsNL for continuing to play a central role in engaging and supporting artists' expression throughout our province, and I also tip my hat to this year's jury, who had a very difficult task of choosing winners from the many quality selections. I applaud Bridget, Joel, and Wayne for their fine works, and kudos to being shortlisted on this prestigious award. I wish the best of luck to everyone tomorrow, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Bernard. Our next speaker this evening is the Regional Vice President of BMO Bank of Montreal. He was born and raised in Clarenville and recently returned to Newfoundland and Labrador with his wife Swan and sons Ryan and Cameron after 20 years away, so welcome back. on that. He has an undergraduate degree from Memorial University, and he is an active member of the community with many charitable organizations and has served as an executive with the United Way in Edmonton for the past 4 years. He's also a big supporter of the Newfoundland Labrador Arts Council's Arts Awards, actually sponsoring the Artist of the Year Award. Please welcome back, Dean Holloway.
Thanks, Reg, and thanks for the welcome. I really appreciate it. So firstly, I'd like to say good evening to Mr. Hill, Mr. Davis, Mr. Gwyn, distinguished guests, and my fellow BMO colleague, at least. I've seen one in here tonight, which is great, and of course, our award nominees. It gives me great pleasure to be here today and witness the tremendous work that our local writers are capable of. I'm always so impressed and proud of the talents that we have here in Newfoundland and Labrador, one of the reasons I am so happy to be back. BMO is very pleased to support the BMO Winterset Awards, which celebrate and support excellence in Newfoundland writers and writing. Sandra Fraser-Gwyn was an ardent advocate and promoter of Newfoundland and Labrador culture, and the BMO Winterset Awards were established to honor her memory. And BMO wishes to pursue that momentum by contributing to the cultural vitality of our society. This award is designed to encourage and promote excellence in all genres of writing, and is composed of a partnership between the BMO Financial Group and those involved from the start. ArtsNL, the project's founder, Mr. Richard Gwyn, and we're pleased with the great work that ArtsNL and Mr. Gwyn have done over the years, and are also thankful for the creation and enjoyment of arts that benefits all Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. At BMO, our tagline is "We're here to help," and you can count on our support and commitment to helping the community and its promotion of arts and culture in Newfoundland and Labrador. We're very proud to contribute to the well-being of society through this prize, and we truly believe that together we can help promote literacy excellence and culture in general. Congratulations again to our finalists. I can't wait to hear you speak and present your great work. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dean. Dean referenced actually one of his colleagues here tonight, actually, and that's Jim Fallon and his wife Susan. Actually delighted to see them here again as well. Jim, of course, was the former VP and a big supporter of the BMO Winterset Awards and the Newfoundland Labrador Arts Council's Arts Awards as well. So we're glad that he actually, even though he's no longer VP, that he's actually coming here to this event as well. So glad to see you, Jim and Susan. On that. Our next speaker this evening is a writer, actor, and teacher, and the winner of the 2016 BMO Winterset Award. He was just recently appointed the new artistic director of Shakespeare by the Sea as well. And one of the BMO Winterset jury members this year, as I had introduced him a little earlier, is now going to speak on behalf of the jury and the task that they had this year. Please welcome Paul Rowe.
Thank you, Reg. Good evening, everyone. I recently learned on Wikipedia, of all places, that the expression of gratitude, that is simply saying thank you in one form or another, results in longer life expectancy, better health outcomes, improved general well-being, and even pecuniary benefits for people. One study revealed that restaurant patrons give bigger tips when the servers write thank you on the checks. That's why they're doing that. So this evening, let's all be good to ourselves and be grateful. I want to say thank you on all our behalves to everyone who wrote, published, designed, or printed a book in Newfoundland and Labrador in 2017. And tonight, as part of the Winterset Award ceremonies, we focus, of course, on the writers. And lest we appear ungrateful to any of the writers, I want to give you a quick rundown of the full array of submissions that Donna Morrissey, Chad Pelly, and myself had to contend with this year as the judges. So there were 31 submissions in all. I'd like to begin by acknowledging 3 books, and if I'm not mistaken, you see them right up at the top up there, all with their literary merits to be sure, but outstanding as well for their quality as physical books. And they are Terra Magna by John-Claude Roy's, with John-Claude Roy's Paintings of Labrador, the text in English, French, Inuaman, and Inuktitut, the extraordinary Towards an Encyclopedia of Local Knowledge by Pam Hall and Gerald Squires, with text by Stan Dragland and an appreciation by Michael Crummy. The excellence of these books can hardly be overstated. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, I encourage you, I beg you to find and read as many of these books as you possibly can. 2017 was a good year for literature in Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, yes, they're all mine. That brings us to our three finalists. So to take them in alphabetical order, we begin with Bridget Canning and The Greatest Hits of Wanda Janes. This debut novelist, described as a fierce new talent by the writer Lisa Moore, took a prescient arrow from her literary quiver and shot it as straight and true as the can of coconut milk thrown by her eponymous heroine, which started a social media firestorm right into the heart of the 21st century zeitgeist. There's been much buzz about this book on literary scenes here and elsewhere, and so it is no surprise to find Wanda Janes and Bridget Canning on the shortlist for this prestigious award. Congratulations, Bridget, on your impressive literary debut, and welcome to Winterset. I have a feeling we'll be seeing you here again. Our second finalist, Joel Thomas Hines, actor, author, musician, has in recent weeks alone launched a television series on the CBC, a gritty and groovy rock album at the Ship Inn, and garnered a Governor General's Literary Award for his 2017 novel, We'll All Be Burnt in Our Beds Some Night. This astonishing work, with its anti-heroic Johnny Keogh making his Canadian hejira from St. John's to Victoria to pour his lost love's ashes into the Pacific Ocean, might strike one at first, given Johnny's background and his lack of social standing, as a journey into some heart of darkness. But it is not that at all. It provides the reader with a remarkably illuminating path to the inner recesses of a human soul, the forces that shaped it, and that unknowable force that drives it forward, undaunted and undiminished, into an all too unforgiving world. Congratulations, Joel, on this remarkable achievement. And now to Wayne Johnson, our very own literary universe maker, contriver of ultra-elegant sentences, he who has time and again transformed our familiar Newfoundland landscapes into magical places full of mystery and intrigue, people with unforgettable characters who, as Mary Walsh so aptly put it, move in and take up permanent residence. He who coined that exquisite phrase, the colony of unrequited dreams. This producer of tomes who in 2017 added yet another impressive and delightful volume to his already outstanding oeuvre. First Snow, Last Light offers the reader, amongst the previously noted avocations, a reimagined Newfoundland history, the allure of snow-filled, night-silenced St. John's streets, a deep, seemingly insoluble mystery, and a new Johnsonian main character of distinctly Newfoundland origin. The novel also brings back to us, with her scathing repartee, her fiendish addiction, her burden of regret, and her finely tuned satire and lightning wit, all perfectly intact, the immortal Sheila Fielding. And what a fine thing indeed it is to have her back and to have you, Wayne Johnson, here with us tonight. Congratulations on this, your latest absolutely outstanding literary creation. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of myself, Donna Morrissey, and Chad Pelly, I give you our 2018 Winterset finalists, Bridget Canning, Joel Thomas Hines, and Wayne Johnson. Thank you.
It's now my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Guy to say a few words about Winterset founder Richard Gwyn. Jennifer.
What a wonderful momentum you've started, Paul. I know people are so anxious to hear the speakers, but just before that, I have a tremendously delightful opportunity to say words that I hope portray really how I feel and how everybody here should feel about our wonderful founding father of Winterset, both BMO Winterset Awards and Winterset Literary Festival in the summertime. And so essentially my task tonight is twofold. It's first to acknowledge that Richard, after 17, 18 years at the helm of the BMO Winterset Awards, is announcing that he's just stepping back a bit from the limelight to make room for others. So he's essentially going to be shifting from presenter on the stage to an enthusiastic participant and a faithful supporter. So it's wonderful to be able to look at a life accomplishment and a life achievement. Not many people get to do that, to have an idea and see it materialize and be what it is. I refer to the BMO Winterset Awards, of course, but also, and I would be amiss not to mention, the Literary Festival, which Richard has always emphatically, and rightly so, says are two separate entities. They're administratively, bureaucratically, completely different, so Richard, don't worry. The only thing in common is that we share part of a name and most of the people. Most of you here, I know, go to the festival as well. The festival this year is the August 9 to 11. Program is up on the website. It's a fantastic program. Tickets are on sale now for Friends of, and the general public can get them as of May 3rd, and accommodation is available, so don't delay too much. So, Richard, as I mentioned, you've accomplished two visions. You wanted a forum to celebrate and encourage writers of Newfoundland and Labrador in honor of your first wife, Sandra, and you did it. And as I said, it's an outstanding lifetime achievement. So we're very proud of you, and I hope you are proud of yourself. And we're proud and grateful for your vision, for your passion, for your brilliance, for your formidable intellect, for your great sense of humor with that little touch of naughtiness, for your perseverance and your ability to disallow anyone to say no to your always reasonable requests, and also for your generosity. I'm not sure that many of you realize how much of Richard's personal resources he's put into the awards over the years. He's been very kind and generous to ensure its success. So, my dear, as you shift from the limelight, we thank you. We'll miss you on the front of the stage, but you'll always be in the front row of support. As Carol says, you are a force, and for that we are very grateful.
Thank you all. I want to say as little as possible because I'll break down. But I'm enjoying myself immensely here. I've been bloody lucky here, and there are an enormous number of very smart, intelligent people who can take the system now and improve it and expand it and do something important. Thank you all very much indeed.
Just before I get started, I just want to say I'm overwhelmed and very honored that my book was selected for this, and congratulations as well to Wayne and Joel. It's an honor to be included with you. And I'm not going to stand up here, and I could go on forever thanking people, but I'm just going to jump in. I decided to read a couple of short passages from the first chapter, basically because I like this first chapter because we get kind of a sense of Wanda in her default setting before the shooting and when everything kind of resets her. So I'm going to start. Everyone can hear me okay? Yeah. Yep, great. Okay. So at this point when it gets started, Wanda is a college instructor. She teaches adult basic education. And the book begins at the moment that she finds out that she is losing her job because the government has decided to privatize the program she teaches in. So, it's total fiction. Never happens. So this section I'm going to read is an interaction between Wanda and her colleague named Mona. In the copy room, Mona crouches by the photocopier, clearing a paper jam. Her white hair is swept back in a braid, but stray whiffs give her a frizz halo. The stupid thing, Mona says. If you don't turn every knob, it doesn't cooperate. She yanks a crimped sheet from the copier's bowels. It wanted to make paper dolls with this one. I guess they won't be replacing it anytime soon, Wanda says. Have you heard anything? I'm not holding out hope. You? Oh, yes, Mona says, I'm gone. My position will be made redundant at the end of the school year. She tries to shut the front panel, but it jars. This is a surprise. Mona has been a technology instructor with ABE for 12 years. Every day her warbling voice echoes in the classroom next to Wanda's like fingertips chirping on fresh-washed dishes. Is there anything you can do, Wanda says. I'm writing a letter. There are too many things I don't understand about this decision. They say the program isn't successful, but how do they gauge success? Mona opens a side panel and tugs out a crumpled piece of paper. I didn't realize teaching computer skills to high school dropouts and single mothers was for profit. It's disgusting. And Wanda feels it, a hot grain of disgust like the pea in the princess's bed, unavoidable, but far too buried to reach. It's just, God, you get so fucking angry. Mona flips up the side panel so it clicks into place. The copier hums in response. Her cloud of white hair seems to crackle in the air. Wanda nods and keeps her face even. Mona said Mona sticks with darns and hecks, but there it is, all wrapped up in Mona's warble. She should respond with something kind, something with equal passion. It makes you wonder how politicians come up with these decisions, she says. I mean, to sit in a room and vote on this kind of thing. You have to think people get bullied into it on some level. All politicians are bullies, Mona says. They make horrible decisions all the time with no regard for anyone. It's terrible. Mona looks up. Her eyes are dark and even. Every time I pass by the Confederation building, I think about Halliday's farm. Do you know where that is? I think so. I think I used to know. It's way in back, Mona says. Sam and I used to take the kids there. She presses a square on the touch screen. The copier's insides purr. Sometimes I think about that farm and its distance from the Confederation building. I bet there are certain points where you'd have a clear shot at the top two floors. Wouldn't take much. Her finger hovers over the touchscreen. I wonder if I should pause this. Wanda swallows. How to respond? Laugh? No, she should say something to match Mona's intensity. Ivan would know what to say, like last weekend during one of his anti-government rants. Ever hate someone so much, Ivan said, you know if you murdered them, you spend the rest of your life masturbating about it. Trish did a spit take and they all laughed, but then again, they were super high at the time. They probably already have bulletproof windows, Wanda says. Yes, probably first thing passed in the budget. They both chuckle. Neat sheets of paper begin to pile out the side of the copier. I'm making copies of the seniority list for a few people, Mona says. It's long, but everyone wants to take it home for the weekend. Understandable. How about you, Mona says, forming a plan? Just do up my resume, I guess. She shrugs. I'm sorry, Mona. It's all you can do. I'm writing letters, though. The union needs to step in, and students are angry. There will be protests. Well, let me know what you do, Wanda says. And then suddenly, I'd be interested in writing letters. Really? A neat, organized, expressive letter to those in charge. Wanda can do it. She teaches people how to do it in business English. But now with the idea of voice and airborne is clearly fruitless. A student uprising. Most of them are income support with subsidized tuition. They'll wander over to a private college, fill out a form. Any letters she writes will receive a polite response. They'll suggest she find work in the private sector. Maybe she'll make half her salary there. Will do. Thanks, Wanda, Mona says. She picks up the stacks of paper. Oh, they're nice and warm. She hugs them to her chest and exits, her shoulders high with forced pride. Her collapsing white braid flaps against her back just enough to break Wanda's heart a little. I'm going to read one more short section. This is from, so Wanda's at home now. Her boyfriend Ivan is there with their mutual friend Trish, who have, kind of gathered to commiserate with her during this bad news, which means they're sitting around the table, smoking and drinking. And this also kind of gives us a look into the dynamic between how Wanda feels about Ivan and how she's starting to feel about Trish lately. Trish sighs. Education's always the first to be slashed and burned. So nasty. No, it isn't, Ivan says. Not everywhere. Look at the success of school systems in Scandinavian countries. Look at the influence of Confucian thought in East Asia. We treat education as a frill because we are a culture inclined. He stabs the air with his lit cigarette, his exclamation point. Look at the way information is presented, how people argue. We must be right-wing or left-wing, scientific or religious, masculine or feminine. No gray areas allowed, no mixture. And here's Wanda, a well-rounded, dedicated educator who chooses to teach the lost 10%, the ones who didn't make it through high school for a plethora of reasons. And what do? Put a price tag on it. Declare its value with a dollar sign. It's capitalistic and unrealistic and shameful. Here, here, Trish says. Wanda sips her wine. It would be nice just to rest her head on the table, on her forearms, like in kindergarten nap time. She pushes the ashtray a few inches towards Ivan. He taps his cigarette on an empty beer bottle. Ashes dust aside. Ivan's just mad because the government's ruined our summer, she says. What, you mean the road trip? Ivan says. We were going to drive down to see my friend Sharon in New Jersey, but if I don't know about employment in September, maybe we should save our money. She glances at Ivan. They haven't discussed this yet. Maybe she's jumping the gun. Yeah, well, not going to the States doesn't break my heart, Ivan says. That place is a disaster. Back in a sec. He bounces off to the kitchen for refills. With Ivan absent, the only sound is Trish's fingernails scratching at the beer label, her eyes downcast. Pick, pick, pick. Nothing to say to Wanda, but all kinds of things to say to Ivan. This is a new thing. Wanda has noticed how lately when Ivan's around, Trish's laugh increases in pitch and volume, spills out at tripping speeds. Like last week with that perfect spit tape. Oh my God, you're so funny, Ivan. What would Trish say if Wanda asked her about it right now, looked her in the eye and tweaked her head towards Ivan's back? What's all this about, Trish? Now that would be unreasonable. Wanda would look like a psycho bitch. Trish and Leo have been their regular couple friends and drinking buddies since she and Ivan started going out. Leo and Ivan have been in at least 3 bands together. Maybe Trish has a little crush. It can happen in long-term relationships, right? Trish and Leo have been on the go for close to 10 years now. I'm so fidgety, Trish says, dying for a cigarette. Tell Ivan not to smoke in front of you. He knows better. Oh no, it's fine. Well, even if he's a weekend smoker, he shouldn't be doing it in the house. Wanda gestures to the walls. He'll have the whole place washed in tar. It's such a luxury to smoke inside these days. Who am I to stop anybody? Trish's eyes dart up as Ivan saunters back. He passes her another beer and straddles the chair beside her. Wanda considers the two of them side by side, like a pair of salt and pepper shakers. Here's Ivan, caramel colored from installing gutters all week. Hasn't shaved since Wednesday because 2 days gives him the ultimate sexy scruff. His hair hangs in black ringlets, glossy and effortless. And here's Trish, pale skin, white blonde hair sliced and diced haphazardly to frame her pixie face, her kittenish blue eyes. She and Ivan are candy from the same shelf in the confectionery, both decked out in cool, aloof shirts. Ivan in his faded Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds t-shirt. Trish in some flouncy blouse she found at Sally Ann, lavender with a bow in the front. Check Trish out. She can even rock frumpy. Wanda gazes down at her own outfit. Horizontal black and white striped top paired with Friday casual jeans. Her brown Mowgli hair dangles to her collarbone. No-nonsense bookends for her face. Everything about her is parallel lines. Once, back when she was subbing, she had a few days in a grade 8 class. One student, obviously not doing his work, had emptied out all the leads from his mechanical pencil and arranged them in the figure of a woman. "I'm making a picture of you, miss," he said. She told him to put it away, and that night she stared at it in the bathroom mirror and examined the unremarkableness of her face. Wanda James, you could draw her with dotted lines and get the gist. Thank you.
Listen, I am very happy to be here, very grateful to be acknowledged. Love the Winterset. I was just listening to Paul read about our stuff, and honestly, Paul, I would never expect anybody to say, like, that's the nicest thing anybody's ever said about this book. I never, ever expected to hear anything like that about, or my book described like that. Thank you very much. I kind of wrote it in a bit of a vacuum, and then listen up some of the accolades around the book, and then that it had gotten support by Newfoundland Labrador Arts Council. And of course, I don't know where the hell I'd be without the Arts Council. And they did. They were. It was under a different title. I don't know, but I got 2 grants for the same book at some point. Just rejigged it a little bit. And they eventually paid off my Bank of Montreal loan. So here I am. How the tables have turned. What? Not recording. I didn't sign. I'm the only one. I didn't sign a release. Has anybody seen the Jimmy Kimmel dog show stuff where he goes around and he doesn't, he edits out the dogs and he just shows the handlers? We're going to have a reading like that later. I was going to, of course, this is hardly a clean book. It's, there's hardly a clean page on here. But Bridget broke the ice with her beautiful reading. So, set this up for you. Johnny Keogh, he's grown up being told he's something. He's been told he is a sociopath, a liar, a thief, bound for jail. And of course, he fulfills the family mythology, and he's uncovered some family secrets at a very formative time of his life. And we meet up with him when he's around 21, 22 years old, and he ends up on this big kind of journey across Canada, hitchhiking, stealing cars, doing it all to get there on the run with an urn of ashes. And my intent was, as he goes along, he sort of cracks open his armor, because he has grown up in the system and in jails, and he was supposed to go down federal, and now he's not. And the further he gets from home, the more he cracks himself open and sees himself outside of the eyes of his blood relatives, that he grew up with. Sees himself as he needs to be seen. One of the things that haunts him throughout his journey in his life is the death of his first cousin when he was around 15. Fairly violent death that's haunted him, and he's got a lot of memories coming back to him. And perhaps he suffered blackouts, how your memory protects you emotionally. And his guard is coming down, and he's out there somewhere in Canada, wakes up in a hospital, and he's asked what he can remember, how he got there, and his response to what he can remember is something years and years ago that he didn't understand then. He's only basically understanding now. What else? What else can you remember? Oh, no. I'll skip down there. So, yeah, he's woken up in a hospital, and he's been beat down. He's been swarmed by a pack of teenage girls outside some gas station in Saskatchewan. He went in to help one girl who was getting kicked around, and she ended up being the worst abuser. But yeah, I thought it was a good way to send him down with all these girls. Grade 8, this is what I remember. It's cold, dreary day in April. This is what jumps into my head front and center when I sees that gaggle of young girls out back at a gas station in that ragged prairie town. I thinks on Mikey, on the ground, his remote control helicopter smashed. Coming back from Florida after Easter holidays with his bright T-shirts and talking Disney this and Disney that, beaches with golden sand, women in bikinis and some showing their boobs and everything, swimming pools, fishing for strange, colorful fish that don't swim around our wharves. Who wants to hear about that shit in April? All right for some. Johnny rallying the troops, some fellas who ain't even seen an orange or an apple since Christmas morning. goading Mikey about his father's money. Fucking Sook making a big deal out of Disney World. Disney World is for youngsters. Look at you, showing off your fancy toys. Give me a turn, give me a turn. Mikey shoving at Tim Cody, Tim shouldering Mikey towards Johnny, Johnny sidestepping, his leg extended, catching Mikey in the shins, slamming him and his helicopter to the ground. Mikey scrambling to collect the propeller, two halves of the windshield, his eyes brimming with panic and rage. Johnny kicking the remote out of Mikey's reach. Mikey swinging blindly at the gang, catching Johnny in the shoulder. Johnny standing back to let the other lads move in. All hands shouldering Mikey back and forth, slapping his cheeks, the back of his head. The neck tore out of his new Miami Dolphins jersey. Someone slams a handful of muck into Mikey's eyes. Johnny standing back and watching, waiting, then swooping in to the rescue as soon as the first real clout connects with Mikey's cheek. Johnny stepping in then, breaking it up, shoulder to shoulder with Mikey, ready to take 'em all on. Cousin Johnny to the rescue. Telling Mikey's mother that evening how it all got out of hand, the lads teasing how Johnny jumped in, broke it up before it went bad. I never touched him. I only ever broke it up. Johnny told to go home out of it. Mikey not allowed to go to the dance that weekend, and then not showing up at school on Monday. No sign of him anywhere. For a couple of weeks. A bit much all over, a little scuffle in the meadow. Johnny over knocking on the door, tapping on the windows. Mikey's father, Uncle Austin, sitting on a couch in the living room in plain view, reading his paper, not even looking up from it. Then one evening, 24th weekend, trouting season, just open, Mikey shows up on Johnny's doorstep with his rod and reel. Down to the gut bridge after sea trout. No questions asked. Mikey's not saying much, pretty quiet. I starts trying to get a laugh out of him with them old McLean and McLean songs. But he's not really into it, so I gives up. After about 10 minutes, Mikey's line snaps taut and the rod nearly buckles in half. Something big on there. But Mikey makes no move to try and land it. Just stands there, staring out over the harbor, kind of dazed, like he's seeing something or looking at something I can't see. Reel it in, Mikey! Hey! You got something on the hook, Mikey! Mikey don't budge, don't move a muscle. Finally, I grabs his rod and starts fighting with whatever kind of beast he's after hooking. Never know what you're going to hook into down around the gut, where the fresh water runs under the bridge into the harbor. Dinny Walsh caught a little shark last fall. I hauls and reels and wrestles with whatever it is, but Mikey is still standing there. He don't move, he don't watch, don't bat an eye, nothing. What's wrong with you? Hey, Mikey! I gives another tug, and as quick as that, the line goes slack, gone, whatever it was. I turns and gives Mikey a good hard click on the ear to try and roust him out of his trance, but I still don't get a reaction out of him. Mikey, what's on the go, man? I wasn't in Florida. What are you talking about? What about the Jersey and the helicopter? And my aunt was down there with my cousins, and my mom got them to send stuff back. What? Yes, burnt out, Mikey. Why would, where were you then? Where were you? I'm not supposed to tell anyone. You can't say nothing to, not anyone. Say nothing about what? Jesus, boy, what about all the talk about Disney World and the beach and naked women and shit? I was in St. John's in the hospital. Why? What happened? Are you sick? Is that why you're not in school? Yeah, no. Well, what then, Mikey? I had to talk to some doctors. The mental. You were in the f***ing mental. You're not supposed to call it that. Mikey hauls off like he's going to hit me, like he wants to. We leans against the bridge for a while, quiet, watching the current. Our reels both of our lines, and Mikey's spinner is busted off, brand new Red Devil. I don't know what I'm supposed to ask him or what I'm supposed to say to him. He sets his head on the wooden railing of the bridge and starts to cry. I just goes about tidying up the rods and the gear, listening to him hiccuping and sobbing. Finally, he raises his head. Voices. I looks around and listens, but always quiet around the harbor. The faint echo of a chainsaw coming from the north side, that's it. No voices. I tells him I don't hear no one. No, me. Voices, I hears him. Where, Mikey? I don't hear no one. In my head, Johnny, voices in my head. Whose voice? Like your father's? Or no, it's not. It's strangers, I guess. Not anybody I knows. Like what? Stuff you remembers? No, it's just voices, mean things, saying shit, telling me stuff. What stuff? Just bad stuff. Like curses or stories or nasty voices, Johnny, telling me I should do things, saying shit that's not true. I don't, like now, do you hear them right now? No, not always. Some days it's bad. They gave me pills to take, but shit, man, that's burnt. That's just burnt. He lays his head back on the railing and starts to sob again. I have no clue what this is, what it means. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I lays my hand on the back of his neck and leans in right close, my mouth barely an inch from his ear. Hey, you in there, get the f*** out of my buddy's head. Hey! Mikey pulls away and winces, gives me a little shove. Jesus, Johnny, bust me eardrum, why don't you? Oh, well, if you wants me to, if you thinks it'll help, I'll drill a hole right into your head and march in with a big stick and kick the shit out of whoever's in there making a racket. Mikey straightens up now, rubs his eyes. He's almost on the verge of a smile. He grabs his rod and sees that his new spinner is busted off. That's 3 spinners you owes me now, John. Don't call me that. We trudges on up the hill in our rubber boots, not talking much, neither one of us in any rush to get home to either of our houses. I'm trying to work through what it means, but I can't figure which way to think. So that's why you never had no suntan when you got back. Haha, yeah, I suppose. You're a fine hand for the bullshit, I'll give you that. Thanks, man. So what was it like, the mental? I said you're not supposed to call it that, but yeah, it was pretty mental. Crazy people everywhere. I was on the Ute wing, I guess, but you'd see the others. Some woman shit herself and rubbed it on the wall in the hallway. And one guy chopped up his neighbor with an axe while the whole family was eating dinner. He can't even remember doing it. The last of the evening sun sinks behind the trees. My head is spiraling. I don't know what to make of it all. Hey, Mikey, the voices, what did they say? What did they tell you to do? Mikey turns and juts his chin forward as if he's about to say something. Then he decides against it. He kicks at the gravel, stirs up a little cloud of dust, spits into the ditch. It's just nasty, messed up stuff, Johnny, that's all. It's not even real. None of it is real. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to be home. Great to be nominated for the Winterset Prize. There was a time when if I was on a panel of nominees, I was the youngest person on it. I miss those times a lot, I tell you. Jeez. Yeah, I'm surprised when Joel was thanking people that he didn't thank me for lending him the clothes he's wearing. Yeah. They used to fit me, you know. I could say the same thing to Bridget, too, I suppose. I can't see who's in the audience, and that's fine. I'm not asking to bring up the lights. I can see who's in the audience, and I've had some experience in the past when I haven't been able to see who's in the audience. After my first book came out, Story of Bobby O'Malley, I think about a year after it came out, the mayor of the Ghouls asked me to read at the town hall in the Ghouls. And for some reason, I didn't foresee the possible downside of that. I just said yes, because it seemed, the Ghouls, I got a lot out of the Ghouls, and it seemed like, giving a little bit back would be okay. So I went there, and they didn't really have a green room, you know. There was the council chambers, but didn't really have a green room. They had a room for me to sit in. And I had no idea who was showing up. I wasn't living at home then. So I walked out when I was about to be introduced, and I realized, looking out at the audience, that every single person in the audience was in my book. You know, it really was true. It wasn't a big audience. Every single person was in the book, and so I was very shy back then, and I had a habit of just putting my head down and reading, and then sort of bolting as fast as I could. So that's what I did, but not for the usual reason. So I read, and then the moderator, who was the mayor, asked if there were any questions. And of course, every hand in the house went up. Aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole thing. And one guy, it's always the guy at the back who asks these kinds of questions. He was right at the back, and he said, "Is it true that your book broke your mother's heart?" Now, as my luck would have it, my mom was sitting right there. And I looked at Mom, and she didn't shake her head or nod her head. She just kind of looked at the floor, and I didn't know that it had had any effect on her. I hadn't heard that it had, let's put it that way. So I didn't know what to say. So the guy, as I was about to blurt out something, the guy at the back said, "I used to live next door to you." And I looked at him, and I said, "Sorry, I don't know you." And he said, "Right next door." He said, "Just up the road from you." He said, "Right next door." And I said, I still don't know who you are. And he gave his name. Let's just call him John Smith for now. I said, "Oh, yes." I said, "Well, I remember your family." I said, I don't remember you. I said, "I think you're a bit older." And he said, "Well," he said, "anytime that I was outdoors," he said, "I was wearing the outfit of a Capuchin monk. And I had my hood up. That's probably why you don't recognize me." I said, "Okay. Yeah. I said, I do remember monks walking up and down the road at Christmas time, yeah." And he asked again, "Is it true that your book broke your mother's heart?" So finally, my mother, who, believe it or not, like all the rest of my family, barely cleared. My mom didn't clear 5 feet at all. She was 4'10". My brothers, are 5'3", 5'4". I don't know where I came from. My mom stood up. It was the first time I'm sure she ever spoke in public. She stood up, and she turned around, and as I said, I won't use the person's name, but she stood up and she turned around and she said, "John Smith, you shut up and sit down." And he did, and I got out of there alive. However, that night, I about 3 in the morning, I woke up with a vicious pain in the stomach. A cramp, that's what you think it is at first, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. It's gnawing pain. So wound up going into the hospital, wound up having an emergency appendectomy, all of which I attribute to the anonymous monk who asked me if I had broken my mother's heart. So I don't know who's out there. As you get older, you worry less about that, but that's because few people are likely to be out there that you still know. However, okay, so what I'll do, I'm just going to read a couple of pages from the very start of the book. I don't know how many people have read the book. There are a lot of spoilers in the book. It's that kind of book, so to avoid them, I'll start at the very beginning. I was telling Joel beforehand, and we think this is correct, that Joel's son, Percy, an actor in his own right, for sure, will be reading the early sections of this book in the audiobook that will be taped in about a week. So that's nice. That's great. However, when I told Joel said, no, he never signed the contract yet. He said, we haven't come to terms yet. But I think we have. Anyway, so this is kind of a coda to the beginning of the book. It's told in second person present tense, which is a very rarely used tense, and I hope this is not a demonstration of why it's rarely used. But it's Ned Vatcher sort of announcing to the reader long before this event actually happens in the book, the event that changes his life. He is a student, track and field star, and he is kind of based on a character that a lot of you know, Jeff Sterling, but he's not enough like Jeff Sterling for me to call him Jeff. But you'll have seen, if you've read it, similarities. So this is Ned Vatcher coming home from school. He left home in the morning, everything was fine. He's coming home after track practice. It's November 1936, it's getting dark, it's starting to snow, and this is his sort of announcement to the reader of what happened to him. Okay, yes. You walk home from school as you have every afternoon for years, along the same streets whose every detail you have memorized without trying to, whose every house and yard and tree you know by heart, the broken paling on the fence 2 houses up from yours, the rain and wind-bent tree that last bloomed years ago, the pattern of the line of lamps on the far side of the street, and the course of the brook that dries up in July. It's fall, late November, nearly dark, and the lights in some of the houses have come on and fireplaces have been lit, whose smoke sweetens the air. There is barely enough of a breeze to stir the leaves. You scuff through them, as you know you soon will through the first snow of the year, which all the signs tell you will come tonight. You have no words for what you feel in these last dregs of November. It's what you always feel on the verge of winter. You near your house where you expect to see what you always see, your mother at the front room window, arms crossed anxiously in front of her, hands gripping her elbows. But on this afternoon, there is no one at the window and no lights on in the house, not even the glow of one from deep within that would tell you that she might be in the kitchen, so preoccupied with making dinner that she has lost track of the time and somehow forgotten what you know she never would forget, the ritual arrival home of her only child. What can explain her having done something she would never do? You look at the houses on either side of yours, which as usual are brightly lit, but no one is waiting to explain to you why yours is dark or where your mother is. She would never leave you in their hands or leave you to ask them if she had left a message for you. You walk up the steps and try the latch, locked. You rattle it loudly with your thumb. You knock on the window as you look into the vestibule, where everything is orderly as always. Shoes and boots in rows beside their fellows, coats in the closet, 3 umbrellas in the box beneath the coat tree. You hammer on the door with both fists, but no one comes, and no lights come on, and there are no sounds from inside. You go down the steps and turn into the sloping alleyway that leads to the garage, whose door is closed and padlocked. There is no reason to think that the Brome might be inside, as your father is not due home for hours, but you look anyway. You go up the back steps and find the back door locked too. This is how the house is always left when no one is home. No lights, all doors locked. You tell yourself your father will be home at 6, and he would have made arrangements for you if something had come up. She would have made them with him. He'd have been waiting for you for whatever inconceivable reason that she could not. She would have left a note pinned to the door for you, for him, for someone. or he'd have left one for you if, for some just as inconceivable a reason, no better idea had occurred to him. You run back up the alleyway, grabbing a shovel that leans against the house. Using the handle, you break the window in the door, reach inside and turn the bolt. You shout. There isn't a sound from inside. You force the storm door open with your shoulder. All the lights are off, and the drapes, but for those in the front room, are closed, so you can see only partway down the hall. In case of power outages, your father keeps a lantern and a flashlight on the wall just inside the door. You grope about for the flashlight, find it, and begin a search of the house, all the while shouting their names. You go from room to room, lighting lamps until the whole house is more brightly lit than you have ever seen it. You see no sign that Edgar came home, no overshoes or overcoat. There is no smell of food. You look out at the backyard through the kitchen window. You go downstairs to the basement, which is empty, then upstairs to their bedroom, where the bed is made, your mother's dressing gown at the foot of it, and her slippers on the floor. It has always been a quiet house, eerily hushed except for the snapping of the logs in the fireplace and the clanging of the radiators, but now it feels like one that has been unoccupied for years, one whose residents in the middle of an ordinary day have left it forever, taking nothing with them. On your way out, you see their hats in the vestibule. You go outside and stand on the steps, surveying the yard, the fence, and the trees across the road. You shout, expecting no reply. The shout is more of an assertion to the house that it is still theirs, still yours, and that all three of you will soon be back. Your father would have known the storm was coming. You know. You read the signs as he taught you to. You know it will come on slowly, but it will be a bad one. It hasn't announced itself as abruptly as the others in the past, but the signs are unmistakable. The ground is cold, the rising wind northeast. The snow begins to fall, and soon it snakes along the street, proof that it's dry and, despite the month, won't change to rain. Something has made your father think it was worth the risk of venturing onto roads that in snowstorms are little used and unmaintained. It snows harder. You run to the street and retrace your steps to school. You're really running now, running the way your coach has taught you to, trying to hold your form no matter what. You can think of no one else to run to, no one else who will agree with you that something must be done. Thanks.
Well, that concludes our event this evening. Stay tuned tomorrow at Government House. We will announce the winner tomorrow afternoon, so probably around 3:30 you'll get the media reports coming out as to who the winner of the 2017 BMO Winterset Award is this year.